Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're looking at chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita.
Picking up from where we left off, with chapter 12, which was all about devotion.
Yeah, devotion as a path, right?
As a path, exactly.
But chapter 13 kind of shifts gears a bit, I think.
It does.
It asks this really big question. Who are you? Like, really?
Yeah, and most of us, we go through life and we never really stop to think about that.
No, we don't. We're just busy doing our thing.
And chapter 13 gives us a way to explore that question with these two key ideas. The field and the knower of the field.
Okay. The field and the knower of the field.
Now, I know those terms sound a bit abstract, right?
Yeah, a little out there.
But stick with us because this gets really practical.
Okay, so the field.
Mhm.
What is that exactly?
Think of it as everything you experience. Your body, your thoughts, emotions, sensations, even the world around you. It's all part of the field.
So everything that's constantly changing, kind of like a river flowing.
That's a good way to put it. Always in motion.
Now, what about the knower of the field? Where do I fit into all of this?
You are the awareness, the consciousness that's experiencing the field. You're like the observer, the witness to all that's happening.
Kind of like watching a movie,
Yeah.
right?
Think of the screen, the actors, the drama, all of that. That's the field.
Yeah.
And you, sitting in the theater, watching it all unfold, you're the knower of the field.
I like that. So instead of getting caught up in the movie, I can remind myself, hey, I'm just watching this.
Exactly. And recognizing that distinction, that you are not the thoughts and emotions themselves, but the one experiencing them, that can be incredibly powerful.
Because in real life, it's easy to get swept away by everything that's happening.
And absolutely.
It's like, let's say I'm stuck in a traffic jam. It's so easy to just think, oof, I am stressed.
We've all been there.
Right.
But try shifting your perspective just slightly. Instead of saying, I am stressed, to say, I'm experiencing stress right now.
I am experiencing stress. Okay, so what does that small change do?
It creates a little space between you and the emotion.
Yeah.
It allows you to observe it without getting completely lost in it.
Interesting. So it's not about denying the stress. It's more about...
It's about recognizing that the stress is part of the field. It's happening, but it doesn't define you, the knower.
This kind of reminds me of that analogy from the text about the storm in the sky.
Ah, yes. Beautiful analogy.
Have you ever noticed how even during a raging storm, the sky itself is still vast and calm?
It's always there, unchanging, even when everything below is in chaos.
So the storm, that's like all the stuff happening in the field, all the drama and chaos.
Right. The changing weather patterns of our emotions and thoughts.
And the sky, the calm behind it all, that's the knower.
Exactly. That's your true self, untouched by the storms.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this can be helpful in everyday life.
It's a powerful shift in perspective.
So it's like no matter how intense things get, there's this part of me that's always calm, always at peace.
That's the beauty of it. And the more you connect with that part of yourself, the more you realize that you're not just at the mercy of your circumstances. You have a choice in how you respond to them.
So I'm not just a tiny boat being tossed around by the waves.
Yeah.
There's something bigger, stronger within me.
It's about tapping into that inner strength.
Mm.
And that's where we'll pick up next time as we continue our deep dive into chapter 13. We'll explore how understanding the field and the knower can empower you to make more conscious choices and find more peace in the midst of life's challenges.
This has definitely given me a lot to think about. I'm excited to explore more next time.
See you then.
Okay, so we're back, and we're diving even deeper into this idea of the knower.
Right, we left off with this question, what is this knower? What's its nature?
It's a big question, isn't it? And chapter 13 does offer some fascinating clues.
It does, but it also kind of throws us a curveball. It tells us that the knower, this observer within, it's not something you can just grasp intellectually. It's not like a fact you can memorize or a concept you can fully define.
So I can't just think my way to understanding it.
Exactly. It's not about analyzing or dissecting it with our minds. It's more about direct experience.
Okay, so how do we experience the knower?
Well, think about it like this. Can you fully explain the taste of, say, a mango to someone who's never had one?
I could try. I could say it's sweet, tangy, a little bit fibrous.
But until they actually taste it for themselves, they won't truly know, right?
But there's no substitute for the actual experience.
And understanding the knower is similar. It's about turning our attention inward, exploring our inner world, and having that direct experience.
So instead of looking outwards, we need to turn our gaze inward. Makes sense.
And this is where things get really interesting, because chapter 13 points out this fascinating paradox. The field is constantly changing, right? All those thoughts, emotions, sensations, they're always in motion.
Like a river, always flowing.
Exactly. But the knower, the one observing all of this, it's unchanging. It's like a silent witness to the drama of life unfolding.
Wow, it's almost like we have this front row seat to the most incredible show, the show of our own lives.
And yet, we often forget we're in the audience. We get so caught up in the drama, in being the characters, that we lose sight of that bigger perspective.
It's like we forget we can choose to simply watch the movie instead of getting lost in the plot.
Chapter 13 is this gentle reminder, hey, you're not just the actor, you're also the audience. And from that vantage point, from that awareness of the knower, you can start to experience a deeper sense of peace and stability.
This is really resonating with me because we spend so much time trying to control the external world, thinking that if we can just fix our circumstances, we'll be happy. But what if true freedom comes from understanding the part of us that's not affected by those external changes?
It's a profound shift in perspective. Chapter 13 is saying don't just focus on manipulating the field, get to know the knower, because that's where you'll find true lasting peace.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we get to know this knower?
Well, Chapter 13 gives us some really practical guidance. It emphasizes the importance of self-reflection, of turning our attention inward and observing what's happening within us without judgment.
So, like, taking some time each day to just sit and observe my breath, my thoughts, my feelings, without getting caught up in them.
That's a great starting point. It's about creating that space between the observer and the observed. And the more we practice this, the more we start to recognize the knower, that unchanging presence behind all the mental chatter.
It's like we're training ourselves to see the sky, even when it's full of clouds.
Exactly. And as we become more familiar with this inner landscape, something really interesting starts to happen. We start to feel less reactive to the ups and downs of life. We realize that we have a choice in how we respond to challenges.
So it's not that the challenges disappear, but we're no longer at their mercy. We have a new sense of freedom and agency.
Precisely. And as we continue to explore Chapter 13, we'll discover even more practices that can help us deepen this connection with the knower and cultivate that inner stability.
This is so fascinating. But before we move on, there's one more key concept from Chapter 13 that we need to unpack.
Ah, yes, you're talking about the three gunas, right?
Yes. The forces that are shaping the landscape of the field. I'm really curious to learn more about those.
Well, buckle up, because understanding the gunas can be a real game changer. We'll dive into that in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we're finally tackling these three gunas. I feel like we've been building up to this.
They're pretty central to understanding how the field operates, yeah.
And just to remind everyone, we're talking about sattva, rajas, and tamas. These forces that are always at play within us.
Think of them like ingredients in a recipe. Depending on which ones dominate, you get a totally different dish, or in this case, a totally different experience of life.
I like that. So let's start with sattva, since we've mentioned it a few times already. It's associated with purity, wisdom, harmony.
Yeah, it's the energy of balance, clarity, peace.
When sattva is strong, what does that actually feel like?
Imagine waking up feeling refreshed, energized. You move through your day with ease, you're focused, you connect with others in a genuine way. There's this sense of inner peace and contentment.
It sounds pretty blissful.
It is. And your actions tend to be more selfless, more compassionate when sattva is leading the way.
Okay, so more sattva, please. But I'm guessing it's not always that easy.
Right, because these gunas are always interacting, shifting. Sometimes rajas takes over the energy of passion, action, movement.
Rajas, that's our get things done energy, yeah?
Exactly. It's what fuels our ambitions, our drive to create, achieve. It gives us that push to go after what we want.
So it's essential for making progress in life.
Absolutely. But like you said with sattva, it's not always a smooth ride. When rajas is out of balance, it can lead to restlessness, anxiety, always striving for more.
That constant need to do.
And that can be exhausting.
So how do we know when rajas has gone too far? What are the signs?
Well, do you ever feel like you can't relax? Like you're always on edge, constantly checking things off your to-do list?
Oh yeah, I know that feeling. Like you're always chasing the next goal, but never really feeling satisfied.
That's a classic sign of excess rajas. And then on the flip side, we have tamas, which is often seen as the most challenging of the three gunas.
Tamas, the energy of inertia, darkness, ignorance. Not exactly qualities we're striving for.
Not typically, no, but it's important to remember that tamas has a role to play too.
How so? It just seems like it brings us down, makes us feel stuck.
Well, imagine you've been running on high Raja's energy for weeks, maybe months. You're pushing yourself, burning the candle at both ends. Eventually, you hit a wall.
Burnout. We've all been there.
And that's where Tamas comes in. It's the energy that forces us to slow down, to rest, to withdraw. Think of it like the deep sleep you need after a long day.
Okay, so Thomas isn't always the bad guy.
It has its purpose. It's about rejuvenation, allowing our minds and bodies to reset.
So it's all about balance, right? Finding that sweet spot between sattva, rajas, and tamas.
Chapter 13 emphasizes that, yeah, it's not about eliminating any of the gunas, but understanding how they're operating in our lives and making conscious choices to cultivate more sattva.
That makes sense. But how do we actually do that? How do we bring more sattva into our lives?
Well, that's where the real journey begins. Chapter 13 lays the groundwork, but it's up to each individual to discover what practices work best for them, what brings them balance, what cultivates more peace, clarity, and connection.
So there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. Some people find that meditation helps them cultivate more sattva. Others find it in nature, in spending time with loved ones and acts of service. It's about exploring and finding what resonates with you.
This has been such an incredible deep dive. I feel like Chapter 13 has given us a whole new framework for understanding ourselves and the world around us. It's not just about the field or the knower or even the gunas. It's about how they all interact to create the tapestry of our lives.
It's a reminder that we have more agency than we often realize. We can make choices that cultivate more peace, more balance, more sattva in our lives.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to remember that this is just the beginning of the journey. Chapter 13 has planted the seeds, but it's up to us to nurture them, to keep exploring, and to find those practices that help us blossom into our fullest selves.
We hope you'll join us next time as we dive into Chapter 14 and continue to uncover the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita.